Welcome to the fruit basket, everybody. Basketeers at the ready, because there's been revelations. There have been revelations today. Oh yes, there have. Revelations galore, my dear. Before we get on to those, I do want to make a mention to the viewer Parkwood, who corrected me on my pronunciation of the name Lena Tyndall, Zara's little girl. I've been calling her Lena for many months now, and I do remember them saying how it was supposed to be pronounced after the little girl was born. So thank you for putting me right, because I'd forgotten. And I've actually got a friend with a very similar name, and we all call her Lee. So that's my excuse. That's what was running around my head. But for those of you that don't know, yes, it is Lena Tyndall. It was probably only me that was getting it wrong. Naughty. Naughty River. Thank you, my dear. Before we progress, what I'm about to share with you has already been shared by the Telegraph initially. So these are, for legal reasons, I must state, claims that are coming from the Telegraph, who have very good, very strong sources and don't go reporting these kind of things willy-nilly. So I will make that very clear. Also, whenever I refer to Charles, I will refer to him as the King. I'm not going to go back and forth between the Prince of Wales as he was and the King, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So, let's not be pedantic about that. For today's purposes, he's the King. All right, my dear? It appears that the King wrote Meghan Sussex a letter in the wake of the Oprah scandal. Yes. It seems that he was the only senior member of the royal family to approach Meghan Sussex after she and her husband disparaged the royal family and discredited this nation on a global scale. And they still show absolutely no humiliation regarding it. The temerity of them is obnoxious, to be quite honest with you, my dears. But in the wake of this Oprah scandal, when they alleged that a member of the family had speculated about the colour of the unborn child's skin, questions and concerns, do you remember? They had questions and concerns, these members of the family, about how dark Archie's skin might be when he was born. Well, Charles, in his missive to Rachel, is understood to have expressed sadness over the chasm that had emerged between the family. No mention of an apology. No mention of an apology. Regret, perhaps, but no mention of an apology. And it is said that the King was disappointed and expressed his disappointment to Meghan Sussex about the need to make such high-profile allegations. And I think many of us will chime with those feelings, right? This source claims that the letters make clear the identity of the family member. So she's sitting on a gold mine if she's not already. And if the time comes and she has to sell all of her wares apart from the mansion and all the accoutrement of her fame and splendour, she can always put the letters from the King up on eBay, can't she? It is understood that both the King and the Duchess acknowledged that whoever it was that was so wrong meant no malice. Unlike the Oprah Winfrey interview, if you don't mind me saying so, because that was a malicious stunt. Every ounce of it was dripping in malice. Don't tell me that it was there for the good of the world. You don't do that to your kin. They can prance and dance about telling us all how much they suffered under the implications of royalty and feeling neglected and feeling unheard, and apparently it was too difficult for them to get hold of therapists when the wife felt desperate and wanting to end things. According to them, all channels of communication were shut down. Likely story. Well, Meghan thanked the King for his words. Thank you, sir. And said that she never intended to specifically accuse an individual of being racist, but was raising concerns about unconscious bias. Oh, that old chestnut, my dear. You know, the whole thing was a perfect storm, wasn't it? This was all a question of timing. And I certainly think, and have said before, that it had so much to do. They were riding the wings of the BLM movement. There were Black Lives Matter. She turned it into Markle Lives Matter and Sussex Lives Matter. And she rode on those coattails. And as I've often said, I think that the BLM movement has, speaking from a point of view of the kingdom, I think it's harmed race relationships in the kingdom and dragged them back for many years. I'm not going to speak on America's behalf. Many of you tell me it's done the same thing over there. Some of you tell me that there was a reckoning needed. And I believe that there was some sort of reckoning needed at some point. But I don't like the manner in which it was imposed upon the world in a sort of sinister clampdown on freedoms, expression, history, ancestry. And it all happened too quickly, too sharply, too surreptitiously, at a very fragile moment in the world's experience during the pandemic. And I feel that it was exploited by the Sussexes. Absolutely, I have absolutely no doubt that it was exploited, because that movement, I'm sure, was used for good in many ways for some people, and to raise awareness and acknowledgement and give voice to those who deserved to have it. But it also, and don't tell me this isn't true because we all know that it's true, it also gave a platform to those who wished to exploit vulnerabilities and exploit the goodwill of people and the general wish and desire to listen, to hear, to improve relations that was coming from all sides, and lots of ego white folk as well as some just plain guilty ones that act very guilty about things. Some with genuine desires to learn, some who were just showboating. I can remember that era, and I can remember a handful of YouTubers, people all over social media platforms, had been told which books to buy. If you didn't, for example, put a black square on your Instagram at a certain time, you were dropped by advertisers, sponsorships. Do you realise how sinister this is, even if you agree with the movement? People cancel left, right for not amplifying and forwarding all these instructions that you are told what you have to do. It is utterly devastating how spellbound everybody was and under some sort of bewitchment from the powers that be about how everybody needs to behave. Well, I remember witnessing YouTubers hurriedly told everybody which books they needed to buy. Here is the list of the books you need to buy to get educated on the fragility of the white ego, this kind of thing. And I'm not saying that some of these books don't have very good points and important points, but it was the retelling, the re-amplifying, the re-merching and merchandising and marketing of all this proliferation of literature and material and instruction of what to do. And if you didn't do it, there was this faction of people that would tear you down. Why are you not supporting these voices, this movement? And then people began to find out that actually they support a lot of things, the defunding the police, the abolition of monarchy, whatever it is, my dear, depending on the country, depending on the... slowly it dawned on people that they might have been hoodwinked, some of them. Well, it was all a perfect storm. It was all the timing. It was all about the timing. And they played a blinder for those that suspect that Harry and Meghan Sussex are manipulative and exploitative. Well, no further evidence required, in my opinion. I'm sick to death of hearing about unconscious bias, because any bias that I've got, I'm completely and utterly conscious of. I'm conscious of and unapologetic of it. I am a human being. I have bias about white people, black people, brown people, mixed people, pink people with yellow dots, purple people with green stripes. Yes, I have bias, favourable and unfavourable, towards every nationality. Yes, I do. Every civilization, every culture. And I will make a quick, sharp judgment about somebody. Yes, I do. I'm a human being. I will judge you up, my dear. It's part of survival. It's completely natural. It doesn't mean that I am so stupid and lack enough nuance to make a snap judgment, but think to myself inside, and this is part of the English reserve, to think, well, they might prove me wrong, whether that's in a good way or a bad way. But yeah, just like most people clicked onto this broadcast, and if they have watched me before, they might make a certain judgment about me sitting here in my blue turban effect hairband and my regalia, my dear, and my shiny lips. They might make a certain judgment, a good one or a bad one. And likewise, people who aren't familiar might pick on and make a certain judgment. But most of them that are rational, whichever way they've gone, will also be thinking to themselves, well, let's give this creature a chance to see what they're all about, or I'll just hate watch them for a while and see which way the domino falls. Do you understand, my dear? It's about being human. So no one needs to school me out of my unconscious bias, because there is no unconscious bias. It is fully conscious, and I fully embrace it. It has served me very well, and I'm always happy for any biases to be proved wrong. In fact, I welcome that, and my unconscious bias is my conscious bias rather is certainly not all in the direction of one race, or any race that is different to my own race, which I've never disclosed to you, by the way. And if Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet are black, then I can assure you that it is possible that I am not the colour that you might perceive me, because if they can be perceived as black and they've got the same skin tone as their father Harry Sussex, who is so white he's blue, then I'm afraid, my dear, as far as you're concerned, you have absolutely no insight into my racial mix, my racial makeup. So please keep your unconscious bias, your unconscious bias, to yourself, my dear. Except I would never ask you to keep it to yourself. Do you see? I would never ask you not to be so clumsy. And that is why I have a problem with the likes of the Duchess of Sussex schooling people on unconscious bias, as if that is the ultimate, as if that is the only way of moving forward. And we saw that same scenario play out with the curious case of Sue Hussey, didn't we? We saw exactly the same thing play out there. This unconscious bias towards elderly, upper-caste white females who have lived their own experience, their lived experience, and may or may not wish to be educated by the likes of the Ngozi Fulanis of this world, or the Marlene Headleys. But back to these letters, and one royal source told the Telegraph, suggested that while the exchange was warm in tone, it had not eased the tension. Surprise, surprise, Chuck, surprise, surprise. So I said it here. It had not eased the tension between the two. Why? Because Charles wouldn't accept responsibility. No, that's me reading between the lines there. Wouldn't accept responsibility. And remember, during that Oprah interview, the Duchess of Sussex has suggested that these conversations were several conversations. That's what she intimated. But guess what? Hubby Wubby todgered in to sit with my wife. He todgered his way in, and in contradiction to the Countess of Dumbarton, suggested that it happened just once. Just once. And they both gave different timelines, didn't they? Do you remember? So even those two Columbos can figure out the right schedule of events. If you're gonna paint the scene of the crime, my dears, practice your Cluedo skills. Sharpen them up, my dear. If you're gonna tell us that it was Miss Scarlet in the library with an umbrella, my dear, make sure that that is what all parties are going to tell us, and not that it was Colonel Mustard lurking around some hallway with his lead piping in hand, my dear. Get the story straight and clean. Dumbartons, I would like to ask you a question. Why is your lived experience any wiser because you are in your early middle age? Why is your lived experience any more richer than that of Sue Hussey. Why? You are in your midsummer years. She is in the winter of life. You are yet to reap the harvest of life, my dear, to see what seeds were sown, which grew and which perished. You are yet to see what of your bounty and which of your bounty is evergreen and which is deciduous, my dear, because a lot of your aspersions and a lot of your fertile growth hasn't panned out to be especially what it seemed, has it, my dear? The leaves are wilting and falling and ain't as evergreen as you hoped they would be, my dear. The seasons come and go. But Meghan Sussex is disappointed with the response of the King, said to be disappointed that Charles did not address her concerns about the bullying probe which was launched into her behaviour towards staff. Now, well, that I think we can chime with the Duchess of Sussex, can't we, my dears? Because I think a lot of us were curious to get the findings of that report. I would like to know. The word is, the buzz is, they need to protect certain people behind the scenes, but as strong as their arguments may be for the fact that they think it was some sort of fabrication, some concoction, that flies in the face of the communications from Jason. That surname drives me mad. Nauf, Knauf, Knorf, whatever. Jason K, whatever it is, my dear. Jason and the Magic Fleece, for all I care. He was fleeced, he was policed, and he's been silenced. We need his tone, don't we? We need the tone of Jason. That is what we need, my dear, to hear things from his point of view. Now, that would be wonderful. Well, it certainly goes to prove that the entire affair was a vulgarity. The entire affair was a vulgarity. And who tried to shed some grace on it? The King. The King tried, didn't he, my dear? Took pen to paper, didn't trust them with a call, didn't trust them with email correspondence, but a handwritten letter. As we know, he likes to write letters. And as we know, it was the late Queen Elizabeth that suggested Meghan take pen to paper with her oh-so-curlicued graphics to send missive to Markle Sr. Well, okay, that didn't play out especially well. But that is the old-fashioned way. It's also a very royal way of doing things. And I thought it was extremely magnanimous of Charles, a king in waiting, as he was, to take the time to reach out to those interlopers, those mischief makers. Well, you certainly cannot accuse, no matter how you think he's dealt with this whole scenario, and I don't beat him up too much over it. No matter what you think, you cannot say that he didn't behave as a gentleman is expected to behave. Either in that respect or in the respect of still continuing to invite that branch of the family to the Coronation. One thing you cannot accuse him of, and one thing they and the world cannot accuse him of, is not behaving like a gentleman and putting petty squabbles beside to try and get on with life. If they are so immature and brattish at the age of the midsummer years, 30s drifting into 40s, if they are so immature and juvenile and jejune and rotten that they feel the whole world must revolve around them because they are Gloria Steinem in waiting, they are Martin Luther, Prince Harry in waiting, they are Meghan Angelou in waiting, they are the love child of Oprah and Ellen. What a thought, my dear. If they really think that they are spawn of all these good and great that went before them, then they're going to show the world exactly how it's done. Well, think on't, my dears, think on't, and witness the grand coronation of King Charles and Queen Camilla, and see how royalty actually behaves, my dear, actually behaves. And you will get a chance to see Queen Camilla shine, because she has chosen her younger sister Annabel Elliot and the Marchioness of Lansdowne to attend her at the coronation alongside her pages of honour. These Lady Lansdowne we've spoken about quite a lot recently. Fabulous woman, close pal of Camilla's and one of her 6 official companions. So she is going to be attending. And also one of the other pages of honour is Arthur Elliot, who is the grandson of her younger sister Annabel, who will also be attending her. So that's exciting. And also he's really good chums with his relative Freddie Parker Bowles, Thomas's son. So they're all very interlinked and all very friendly. And also Lady Lansdowne is godmother to Camilla's daughter, Laura. You see the tangled webs we weave, my dear, but these happen to be glorious, regal threads. So that's all right. Actually, it's a rather bittersweet occasion because Annabel's husband, Camilla's brother-in-law, Simon Elliot, died very recently, just a few weeks ago. I think he was in his 80s, 83, 84, 83. And he was very close to Camilla. They were all extremely close, and it's very sad that he is going to miss her crowning as queen. They were so close that they were even invited onto the honeymoon after Charles and Camilla were married in Scotland. Eugenie has given a glimpse, the first glimpse of her niece, little Sienna Mapoli-Mozzi. Yes, she has. She shared a photograph of Sienna watching penguins with little Augie. Little Augie Brooksbank. This was at London Zoo on Instagram to celebrate Earth Day. And another strawberry blonde, it looks like, in the family, doesn't it? Please, conspiracy theorists, I can hear you now. Please, let's not bring that nonsense here, please, my dear. I shudder to think of the conspiracy theories that are going to come out now. We know that there is another flaxen, cinnamon-haired child in the family. Gorgeous. Gorgeous little things. And there was also another photograph of Jackie Brooksbank with Augie in woodland with Doggy. And in another photograph, Eugenie was examining oysters, searching for pearl, no doubt. Searching for pearl. Meggle dear, Megan, are you in there? Are you in this clam? Oh dear, keep searching, my dear, for the girl with the pearl. Pearl was cancelled, remember? What a wonderful, fabulous day that was. Fabulous day. Callooh, Calais. I chortled in my joy. Now, if you are wondering what the Princess of Wales is going to be wearing to the coronation, well, so am I. I can't wait to find out. I'm hoping for pure, brilliant white and diamonds glittering affair. Dripping, dripping, dripping. And full furs and ermine and every gem. Every gem you could imagine, my dear, splendid. Yes, actually, just white and silver brilliance, or a cacophony of technicolor jewels. Can you imagine going completely over the top? Rubies, sapphires, diamonds, topaz, everything just dripping, my dear. Not even colour blocking, just head to toe in gems. Okay, maybe she should wait for her own, for William's coronation when she is crowned. Consortium, my dear. Maybe she should wait for that moment. But if you are waiting, well, we've got a hint of a colour that she might be wearing, because at that affair in Birmingham this week, she was cavorting with Alison Hammond, the television presenter. And Alison Hammond said that she asked Catherine, "What are you wearing? Because I can feel that you're going to wear blue." For some reason, that's what she thought. And apparently Catherine answered and said, "Well, there's a hint of blue." What? Yes, there was a hint of blue. Ooh, a bit like my headband, dear, and my delicate earrings. A hint of blue. I must say, blue never thrills me, although it always looks really lovely. But yes, well, she's worn hints of blue before, not only in her sashes, but she wore a very icy blue gown once at one of the state occasions. That was wonderful. She looks good in all of them. Of course, she could have been talking about the old twinkly, couldn't she? Her late mother-in-law's ring. That is, of course, blue. And I was wondering what other tiaras there could be with blue. Well, there's the Belgian sapphire tiara that Camilla has worn and belonged to the late Elizabeth. I would imagine it's unlikely because the late Queen's tiaras, one would imagine, are now really for Camilla to use during her tenureship as Queen Consort. But who knows? And then, of course, there are the Brazilian aquamarines, that parure, which I think are absolutely stunning. I love the Brazilian aquamarines. It might even just because the name is so juicy, isn't it? The Brazilian aquamarine. Dripping. Oh, Mr. Getty, if you're watching, I would love some Brazilian aquamarines. Don't you think that they would suit me? The real thing. Oh, Mr. Getty, don't you forgetty. Forget me not. Rupert Murdoch, you're going free, aren't you, at the moment? Hi, my name's River, and I'm even taller than Jerry Hall. I got even more leg to wrap around you, my dear. I got even more leg than a bucket of chicken. Yeehaw! As Jerry Hall used to say to me. Yeehaw! Oh, Rupert. No, I mean, even I draw the line at something, and that something would be Rupert Murdoch. Anyway, actually, before we go on to me on Farrow, I want to praise Alison Hammond, because Alison Hammond, who happens to be a very popular television presenter at the moment in the kingdom, she's got lots of followers, and she is somebody that I admire for presenting her admiration of the Prince and Princess of Wales, and I believe other members of the royal family, if my memory serves me correct. She's not backwards and coming forwards as a popular, I was going to say young, but I don't think she's especially young in spirit, television presenter, and a woman of colour, because a lot of people of colour who adore the royal family and love them risk cancellation for saying anything positive about the royal family. You know, this has happened quite a lot over the last year, particularly in the wake of what the Sussexes did. Well, she isn't afraid to be full of praise for them, and I really, really like that. So I give all props to Alison Hammond. She's gone up in my estimation. She praised them on social media, and trust me, she will come under fire for doing that, because some people have believed the lie. Some people buy the lie. Another one who came under fire but regretted her decision for it, and the mob came after her, was Mia Farrow. And I don't know much about Mia Farrow. I know that her life's been rather messy, shall we say, and various family things. God, I don't even want to know, to be honest with you. All I know is that I loved Rosemary's Baby. the film Rosemary's Baby I thought was fabulous, and I thought she was great in that, and that's all I really know, my dear. But I do believe that she has liberal sympathies. She is not the sort of demographic that would usually comment on Harry and Meghan unless they were offering their love and praise. Generally speaking, I am aware that I have some of that bent within the audience here who don't approve of the Sussex goings on, and I love that mix. But she posted, and she said, "Here's my unkind thought of the day," which is a weird thing to post. I've got to say, it's rather random that she decided to do this, but anyway, so here's my unkind thought for the day. I'm getting a little bit tired of Harry and Meghan. And then I think she took some heat. And then she said, "Of course, those who remember the heartbreaking image of Harry, a child, walking behind his mum's coffin. And we can only wish him and both of them every happiness." Anyway, it appears that she came under fire from the mob immediately, and she quickly deleted. They had the receipts, my dear. They had the receipts, so, you know, not really worth turning off the comment, but I guess you couldn't be bothered with getting all the replies, and I understand that, my dear, so, you know, I can't really blame you in this instance, but I guess you shouldn't. It was strange that you posted it in the first place, but she experienced what a lot of people are going to experience, especially from that side of the lollipop. You just don't say a word against them, because you will be accused of, guess what? Unconscious bias, as well as all kinds of other things, my dear, simply because you have a distaste for two grifters. Now, on the subject of the Queen Consort's Ivory Rod, well, there's been little rufflings and little mumblings in the press about, oh dear, you know, how naughty it is to use ivory, especially when Prince William has spoken so very vehemently over his disdain for ivory, and the rumour is that he wants to banish it from every royal residence, which I think is completely over the top. But a Botswanan tribal leader has come forward, the chief of a district of 18,000 people has come forward to say that critics of the use of ivory do not understand its role in conservation. Now, I just want to say this is not a defence, I'm just reporting to you what has been said. I'm certainly not defending the ivory trade or the the hunting of ivory, but I'm not sensitive about ivory that was procured in the past. I refuse to judge people from the past. This is what it's all about. Anyway, just so you can see here, at the top is the Queen Consort's sceptre with cross, and beneath it is the Queen Consort's rod with dove. Beautiful objects, aren't they, both of them? Yes, and I agree with those who say it would be even more beautiful on its natural position on an elephant. But there is also beauty in this artefact. And this Botswanan tribal leader said that Camilla should not be afraid, as it will highlight the need for rural African communities to hunt for conservation. She said, if the Queen is carrying the Ivory Rod on May the 6th, I am really proud of what she is doing for our community. She's supporting us as a community who are coexisting with these wild animals. She said the people in her district relied on careful, responsible hunting of wildlife, including elephants, overpopulating in her region. She said, we don't want to recklessly kill as people describe. And by the way, I don't believe that this is some kind of conservational statement by Camilla. I don't think it's as deep as that, but it is interesting to hear the perspective from a native Botswanan tribal leader. The ivory rod that you will see at the coronation is 3 feet long. It was made by the royal goldsmith, Sir Robert Viner, for Mary of Modena when she was crowned alongside James II in 1685, and it's been used to crown every consort ever since. And before we wrap up, I would like to pay just a few seconds of respect to the late Barry Humphries, who died today. Very famous here in the kingdom, very well known throughout the Commonwealth and his native Australia. I'm unsure how well known he is further afield or in the States, but a big deal here, especially I believe from the 50s onwards, and it sort of culminated in the 1990s, and I've seen reruns, some of them are on YouTube, of his show The Dame Edna Everage Experience, which was fabulous, and it looks like it was very edgy for its time, and he wasn't scared to be bold, which I adore about him. And I loved the character of Dame Edna that he created in 1955, Dame Edna Everage. This character, of course, was not a real dame, although Barry Humphries was a CBE. He was made CBE, Commander of the Order of the British Empire, in 2007, and before that, created Officer of the Order of Australia in the Queen's Birthday Honours. And I didn't care for his other characters because not all of his characters were drag. I think Edna was the main one. But some of his other characters I did not care for at all, I've got to say, at all. It was just, for me, it was Dame Edna who I enjoyed and thought was really fabulous. And she was famous for having on huge celebrity guests, the Mel Gibsons, the Chers, big to-dos. And she would sort of reduce their egos, but give their egos a good old bashing and play the star herself. And if they had a good sense of humour, which most of them did, they would go along with it and really enjoyed being sort of belittled with Dame Edna's put-downs. And she had a fabulous... the favourite part for me was her assistant, and I think her so-called bridesmaid, Madge. Is it Madge Alsop? Known as Madge the Badge, because her only job, she never said one single word throughout all the series. She would just sit there, glum, stony-faced, and she would have to issue a badge for the celebrities in case nobody knew who they were. So Cher would get a badge, Jar Gabor would get Jar, and they'd be plonked on unceremoniously. And, there was something postmodern about it, I think, and very fruity. And, we lost another queen last month, didn't we, in the form of Paul O'Grady, Lily Savage. We spoke about that. Some of you told me about, I forget the name, but of a drag queen in America who was, I think, one of the oldest, if not the oldest, living drag queens, who was a bit of a legend on the scene. And so they've been dropping like flies recently. But this was an unusual drag queen because he was, as far as I know, not that it should matter, but was a straight drag queen. And that is a rarity, obviously not unheard of, but it is more of a rarity, and especially to do it with such aplomb and so well. And although he was such a fabulous fantasy, as she was, a ridiculous sort of fantasy figure of absurdity, so over the top, You could tell that when celebrities and guests were in the company of Dame Edna, that they were fully submerged into the fantasy, and that they were looking and loving and adoring this creation of it, and fully believed it and fully entered into it. And I mention this because it thrills me in the same way that the theatre of royalty thrills me. I fully understand, for those who might mistake my enthusiasm for sycophancy, I understand that the late Elizabeth, for example, was just an ordinary woman like everybody else. I would say extraordinarily good at her job, but no more extraordinary than many people you will pass on the street every day. She was just a woman. I do understand that, and Charles is just a man. But it is the dressing up of life that gives me life, my dear. It's what I often say. You can dress the mundane until it is magic, and it is not just about the accoutrement and the clothes and the tiaras and the jewels. It's about energy. It is about the royal spirit you can channel. That that is for those of us that believe in magic. That is the magic. That is the magic, and that is why the likes of me enjoy the splendour, pomp, circumstance, and mystery of a coronation. Well, I should say that the event in itself creates a sense of mystery, and for me that creates magic, which gives me a sense of wonder. And what is a life without wonder and a bit of awe and a bit of scintillation? I accept if it's not something that appeals to you. You do meet those kind of souls that don't want life dressed up and would rather a sort of beige landscape. But that is not my sensibility, my dear. No, it is not. Go figure. Humans have dressed up life since the word dot, since they were cavemen and chucked on their furs around their scanty parts, my dear, and started drawing things on their eyes from ancient Egypt onwards. Humans have always been called to deify, and they have always been called to drag up. To drag up, my dear. And there's a reason for it, and that is why I celebrate the likes of Barry Humphries for creating Dame Edna Everage and giving us fun and juice and fruity moments. And the Queen and members of the royal family enjoyed every drop of juice from those fruity moments. They loved it. And you can see them rolling up. You can see the late Diana creasing up. They take royalty even outside of themselves for a few moments, make them laugh at themselves, see the humour, bring some playfulness into life. And in fact, although I'm not trying to draw a parallel, well, I suppose I am, I'm not trying to put myself on the same pedestal as the Barry Humphries of this world. I'm on my own pedestal, dear. But in a small way, that is what I try to do. Drag things up, poke fun at ourselves. And the sad thing, of course, is that if Dame Edna's television shows were appearing on our screens today, it'd be cancelled. Should be out, wouldn't exist. No. Too offensive. The digs would be too personal, be accused of all kinds of transphobia, probably torn down, a la J.K. Rowling, along those lines, Be one of those, wouldn't it? Out. Such a shame to think of all the really decently talented, fun, juicy characters that we are missing out on right now, because advertisers will pull from them, platforms will be taken away, people will pitch up and protest against them, my dear. These sour fruits, terrible. But thank you for not being so sour. Thank you for being juicy fruits and for keeping me company. Please do leave a nice juicy comment below, and do call back for the next broadcast and we can hang out together and have some fun. And do feel free to pay a little visit to my Privy Purse in the description box below, and you can chuck in half a crown, my dear, or a full crown if you're so bent. Thank you for your time, and I will see you soon, my dears. Ta-ra and toodle pip. Goodbye, my lovers. See you next time.